You're listening to the JA Talks podcast, created by JA patients for JA patients and the people who love them. Here, learn what it's like to be diagnosed with juvenile arthritis at a young age and tips and ideas from our hosts and guest experts.
Welcome back to another episode of the JA Talks podcast. I'm Bailey Bowman.
And I'm Kate Wingate.
And today we are talking about siblings. Growing up with arthritis, it affects the entire family. One group of people that we don't get enough talk about are the siblings. From giving you the front seat so you can stretch your joints to holding your hand when you're getting an infusion, JA siblings are there for you through it all. I know for me personally, I don't have a sibling, but I can only imagine how incredible it would have been to have somebody there for me.
Joining us today, we have sisters Marilee and JC. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Both of you are longtime volunteers with the Arthritis Foundation, and I know that you actually have a very interesting JA story. Can you give us a little background on each of you?
I'm Marilee. I was actually diagnosed pretty young at 18 months old, and I've had arthritis from a very young age. I don't really know anything else. So that was quite interesting growing up.
Yeah, so I'm JC. I got diagnosed in 4th grade, but we are very close in age. So I don't remember anything but Marilee having arthritis. And then I got diagnosed, and it originally actually was diagnosed in my shoulder, which turned out not to be arthritis, and turned out it needed it's fine. But I do have arthritis. That was my introduction to arthritis.
So JC, not being diagnosed until 4th grade and having Marilee diagnosed before, do you remember the hardest part about having a sibling with arthritis or with a chronic illness when you didn't have one? Do you remember anything about being the one without?
I think the hardest thing really was seeing her go through all of the doctor's appointments. And, I wasn't old enough to stay home alone, so I would go to them all. And, I saw her struggle in school with walking and if she was flaring, needing that extra help. And, I knew that I couldn't provide it, but also I saw the fight that she put up and that my parents put up just to get her the help she needed. So that was probably one of the hardest parts. I think also just being the kid that didn't have it, there was a lot of attention on her and there was a lot less on me. So I always kind of felt like I was put on the back burner a little bit, which kind of led to some challenges that I had to face.
I wouldn't even say that she just felt like it. There were certainly plenty of times where she really was.
That is definitely something that I know I haven't experienced, but at the same time, it's a little daunting to have all your parents' attention on you. So Marilee, I'm actually going to turn it to you now. Do you remember how things were before JC was diagnosed? What was that like for you to be the one with the chronic illness when she was struggling a little bit?
I think that kind of just goes back to what it's like just to have a chronic illness in general. I mean, JC was always great. She was always super supportive. And I have those really great memories where, a lot of times we would spend our summers reading together because I was flaring and I couldn't really do much. And that was great.
Arthritis kids who read.
Yes.
I don't know what it is, but I have a cousin and she really likes being active and likes to be on her feet all the time and play games. And I'm just sitting in the corner with the book and I realized maybe that's because of a lack of mobility. Maybe that's because that was our refuge, Get your kids with arthritis to read because it will help.
And going off of that, there's just so many different worlds that books give you. And I know that sounds cheesy and that sounds like everything that
so true.
But when you're reading, you can escape the life you're in right now. And it gives you that feeling of joy and that you can do stuff. And I think that's what we really liked when we were reading.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say was that as someone with a chronic illness, other people just don't get it. And that's not their fault at all. But it's really hard when, you can't do everything that everyone else can. And that's always something that's going to be difficult. Reading can really help you find that connection to someone who really does get it. once JC got diagnosed, it did get a lot easier for us to be together and like have a better understanding. It's before she got diagnosed, there were a lot of times where I would be happy for her that she could do what she could do, but at the same time, just jealous of her, and like she can go to the birthday party with her friends and I can't always. That was always really hard for me.
That brings up a really good question of, you know, now that you guys are both diagnosed, or even before, like, are there some certain things that you guys rely on each other for in helping with your chronic disease?
I think we both rely on each other just to like rant, and our parents say that we're like, oh, what's it called?
Kate, I see you nodding there.
Sometimes you just need someone to rant to without having a fix to it.
And, and our parents a lot of the times are like, you're hyperfixating on your pain, and like when you talk about it, your pain is going to be more intense. And like, while yes, that could be true in like certain situations, it's so hard. It's not like we're just sick from like the flu. It's like something that our bodies can't really handle the same way other people's bodies work. And so it's not like we're hyperfixating on the pain. It's just that we need that person to understand the challenge that it actually causes, and like the mentality that we have to use and go through.
And just like to validate it, I feel like a lot of times we're told just like, don't fixate on it. But it's not like it's just don't fixate on it. We also get the message of like, it's not that bad, or
find a friend who you can just rant to and not have to like get like a solution.
And I mean, one of the things with us that is just the best since we've both been diagnosed is one of us can walk down the stairs to the other that's sitting on the couch and just go like, oh, my knees are stiff. And the other one's just like, oh, hey, me too. I think a storm's coming.
Yeah. Oh my God, predicting the weather.
Yes.
We are old ladies. I mean, during quarantine, I took up cross-stitching and started drinking coffee, and I was like, wow, look at me. I am really living into the granny stereotype. Anyway, sorry, that was a tangent. But to agree, I completely agree with you two. My parents didn't use the hyperfixation language, but it was very much when my feet would hurt, you know, after we're a very active family, so we would go on like hikes and stuff, and my feet would hurt. And my mom would say, oh, my feet hurt too. You know, this isn't arthritis. And I was like, great. However, it's so hard. Well, it's also so hard if you know that you're not flaring to differentiate between arthritis and regular pain. I know, Marilee, you were diagnosed at 18 months. So was I. So I don't know regular pain either. JC, you might. I don't know, but not that you can remember, probably.
I was a very active kid. You know, I played soccer, basketball. I did cross country. I did track. I did I did rock climbing. I did like.
I loved rock climbing. Oh my gosh.
Swim. I loved like everything active, but I was very prone to injury. So starting when I was very young, I would get injured and I would like hurt myself, and I would like break my knees or break my ankles.
Broke your kneecap.
So I just, you know, I remember like that type of pain, I guess. And I remember, you know, like twisting my ankles because we were both like hypermobile.
Yeah.
But I don't think I ever remembered like purely being like sore from walking.
And I think actually the hypermobility is something that we both have from our parents, but it's also, it for us goes hand in hand with our arthritis. For me, I kind of, even when I'm not flaring, I'm just, the hypermobility really can cause a lot of movement difficulties and
problems with joints, and like
it can be hard to like just tell the like there's the arthritis, and then there's the pain from the hypermobility, and then there's like, oh, I sprained my ankle.
That's what I wanted to say though, is like connecting with a sibling, like, and Kate, how you said you just need to find a friend. That's why I think the Arthritis Foundation and camps and the JA Family Summit and all of these things are so important. And I know JC, because JC found her very best friend through that. But I personally, like, I didn't meet another person my age with arthritis until I was a sophomore in college.
That
Yeah,
is
so hearing
insane.
your guys is like, I had this person to connect with. Like, don't get me wrong, I had my best friend. She was my lifeline through everything growing up. She probably knows more about my arthritis than I do. But like having somebody to talk to that actually gets it is a whole different conversation. And I think that that's why this podcast is so great. Like, connect with somebody that can relate and can just let you complain. Like I I personally try not to complain as much because I didn't really have anyone to complain to that could understand. So it was always just like, oh, Bailey's in pain again. Oh, Bailey can't do this, that, this, that, and the other. And so
Somebody else identifying it for you.
oh, 100%. So that's why I think it's so important to, if you don't have a sibling, to find a best friend, to find another person with arthritis that can help you just feel not so crazy about it, honestly.
It's the mutual understanding. It's the whole being like, I can go to Marilee and I can be like, I could just sigh. And she's like, I understand. She like knows my pitches and my size and all of that. And like, I know hers.
And you know mine, yeah.
But like, I can always like go to my phone and text like my two best friends that I met there. I can text like anybody I've stayed in contact with from the family summit, from camps, from advocacy.
Right.
I can text any of them like whenever I need to, and I can be like, I am flaring and I need support, and nobody gets it, and they're all like, I am sorry, I'm here for you. And they're not even being like, oh, try heat, try ice, try stretching. We know.
I hated stretching for the longest time. And then I started doing cheerleading, which I was never allowed to do. I wanted to be a gymnast. It was no, because it was high impact on my joints. Freshman year of high school, they were really desperate on the cheerleading team. They had like 5 girls. So I was like, now is my time. I don't have to be good. I don't have to be stretchy. I can just do it. And I started stretching every day for cheer.
Right.
And I am so angry about it, but gosh darn, did that help me?
I think part of it is that whenever we go to like a doctor or anything and like, we're flaring or we're hurting and they're like, oh, well, I don't want to change your medicine. Have you tried yoga? Have you tried stretching? It makes it so much harder to actually want to do that thing. And like when your parents tell you over and over again, like, have you tried stretching? Stretching helps. It's so hard to really get in the mind.
Especially when stretching hurts. When you can't fully extend your knees to stretch out in front of you, like ow.
Something small, and you're like, I know that this would help me, but I have been told from all of my providers, from my parents, that stretching is going to be like the magical cure. It makes you can't. It's just like it's such a big turnoff to actually wanting to actually do it.
And I'd even kind of go in like a little bit of a different direction, like just it's great to have the information when you're new to it and when you don't really know it. But once you do know it, it's like you don't need to tell me 1,000 times that have I tried heat, have I tried ice, have I tried stretching? Like I know
that for me, as I've gotten older, and as I've been more vocal about my arthritis, a lot of my friends, or not a lot, but at least 2 of my friends, have had real chronic illness issues that have either been difficult or, don't have a test for, like arthritis, or they're being invalidated by doctors. Or I even had a former classmate reach out to me and be like, hey, I just got diagnosed with arthritis and I feel X, and X. What worked for you? And I was, in one point you feel like I can finally help. You feel validated, but at the same time, it's exhausting. I can't imagine being a sibling with that too, because it's also like, it must be, I know that it's different for y'all, but for me, if I'm your only resource, I can't do that all the time, so.
Particularly when you have to manage your own too.
Right.
And so that's something that's really interesting. So looking through the lens of your JA, how do you think your guys' relationship has changed as you've gotten older? And like, what's the difference now compared to versus maybe when JC was diagnosed in when she was in 4th grade, right?
Yeah,
in 4th grade.
we're still very competitive. We're a very competitive family. I am competitive. Let's get this straight. I am the competitive. And it's a problem, and I'm working on it, but not really.
So
and
accurate.
so when I wasn't diagnosed, or when I was a little bit younger, I guess I would always be like, oh, well, she's hurting today. I want to like kind of let her win. And do you know how hard that was on you? Can we just like appreciate the fact that I'm such a great sibling and let her win sometimes? Anyways,
I don't know if you really did.
Anyways, you know, when I got older, when I got diagnosed, I think it's more of just we obviously got closer as we grew up. We were definitely a little bit more of a butting heads type of relationship when we were younger.
Yeah.
But I would say, I think just getting that mutual experience and the mutual like understanding really helped us to like become closer. And I think that has led to us being able to like, she can come into my room at like 10:30 p.m. and be like, ow. I know I've said that so many times on this podcast,
but it makes a difference.
But it's
the amount of times I repeat myself, you're absolutely fine.
Just like, I think that's one of the biggest things, and I can get that, and I think that is something that really helped our relationship become stronger.
I mean, I'll bounce off that. Obviously, siblings don't always get along, even in the toughest of times when probably really should. What has helped your relationship during those toughest times? I know we talked about reading. Is there maybe something that y'all would do together that was really special or something like that? Just what has been your experience just in general?
There are so many times where we've had the arthritis and the flaring, and both of us have had other medical stuff as well. Add into that family things and just life things. And I think just when you really have to be there for each other, I think that's really strengthened our relationship.
I think, like, going off of that, I think we just have certain things we have very similar reactions to. Or, like, I've been told we talk in, like, a similar, like, way our pitches go up.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is just because we spend so much time together. But when we're both flaring or when we're both sore, we like to go back to our like childhood and we watch like our childhood TV shows, or we watch our childhood movies. Like I know I do a lot of like Sophia the First, and I know that's
oh my God,
ridiculous, but that is like my favorite. Like when I am sick or when I am hurting, I'm like, I am watching Sophia the First. I'm sorry, you can't deal with it.
Like, and it's interesting to watch from my perspective because I see her go like between Sophia the First and NCIS.
It's just quite. But then like also we do a lot of like Super Buddies or like those types of movies that are just childhood favorites of ours. And I think
mindless, no brain.
Yeah, like I think we definitely I feel like our relationships have gotten stronger because, you know, like we understand, and like even if we're fighting, like we do this thing where like I can be so mad at her, and then in like an hour later I'm like, come downstairs and watch this movie with me. And I think part of that is because I'm like, I'm hurting and I just need that companionship. I just need that person to like be there to like hold my hand, like not like in a literal sense, but like
comfort you.
Metaphorically, like I just need someone. Like I don't want to be like alone in my room because then I'm gonna get all sad and depressed, and like that's not good either for a flare. So that I think has strengthened it a lot.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that we do is also when you're hurting, you're dealing with that, and it's a lot harder to deal with like little annoyances.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to just
overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I know I get really annoying when I'm flaring. She turns sweet. She's like, thank you. Like she's like, if it's not a problem, can you get this? And I'm like, I don't feel good. So we just like totally like switch personalities.
We do go opposite.
I think, you know, we do a lot of games, I guess. Like that's something we do a lot.
I mean, sometimes it's just like
climbing into the bed. And just
yeah. Oh my God. The number of times that she just like comes into my bed and just lies on top of me, just randomly.
It's just, you know what, she signed up for it.
How exactly did I sign up for it? I'm the older one.
Exactly.
You know, you mentioned that it's nice to go into her room and just kind of have that comfort so you're not sitting alone by yourself. Would you say that there's any like silver lining to you both having JA? Like, or even just yourself? Like, I know for me, my arthritis is the reason that I'm the way I am today. It's the reason that I work for the Arthritis Foundation. It's the reason that I feel like I'm more compassionate towards people. I strongly, strongly, strongly believe that like my JA was the best thing to ever happen to me because it's led me down a path of so many great relationships and friendships and jobs and all of these different things. So what would you guys say? Like, do you have a silver lining to having JA?
Yeah, I think the biggest one for us is probably one that JC's already hit on several times. Being able to have someone get it, to be able to say, my knees are stiff, and just have someone say, yeah, mine are too. It's not a like,
it's not a competition. It's not invalidating. It's just comfort.
Exactly.
And I think the other thing is that we haven't really hit on is that, you know, you can always complain to your sibling. Or like I complain to her like every single day and she just has to live with it. But part of it,
with mine too, so
that's true. But
we might be even on that.
Part of it is that schools have a really hard time, like at least my school does. It has a really hard time with like physical disabilities, and the fact that arthritis is it's an invisible illness.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard for a lot of the people at my school, teachers, staff, like the nurses get it, obviously, because they're like, they don't like get it, but they like have more of an understanding and compassion towards me. But some teachers just don't understand, and they're like, oh, well, your flare will stop in like a couple days, right? I'm like, no, it can be like a couple months. Like my parents don't understand, like they see it, but they don't understand the like mentality that it's hard to kind of deal with that. And, you know, we've both had problems with school, so I can always go to her. I can tell my friends, but having her here just to be like validating the fact that, you know, the school system sucks and that they need to become better at working with invisible illnesses and just things that are struggling. Like they're better on the mental health side of it, but
sometimes.
But like the physical things, it's just nice to have that type of reaction, being like, I know, like it's just I don't need a reason. I don't want something to be like, try this, try that, like try XYZ. I'm like, I just need someone to tell me they understand and that it's like such a bad situation to be in. No, I think another thing is that you just meet incredible people. Like I got involved with the Arthritis Foundation as a sibling first. You know, I met some amazing people that I'm still in contact with. But like you just get connected to a world that you never would know about if, you know, if it wasn't given to you in life. And I think
a more supportive world. Like you go there and no matter what, I feel like once you have the struggle of your own, you just tend to be more open to other people who could also be struggling.
You're more like, support. You have less judgment.
And that just ends in a more supportive, more comforting environment that you wouldn't necessarily find in typical places. I mean, the school system has been really, really bad to both of us. Like, one of the things is I will 100% stand by a 5-year-old is so much more understanding than a 50-year-old.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. Kids have the stereotype of being like, why? But once you tell them why, it's like, okay, that's just how life is.
Like, one thing I've definitely struggled with in the past is being able to advocate for myself. I think part of that was because when I was younger, you know, a lot of the focus was on my sister, Marilee, and like that struggle that I kind of had to like face. But I think I also just hate confrontation. I just can't deal with it. I feel awful. But being involved with this foundation, like having somewhat of a leadership role in certain areas, have definitely made me feel more comfortable talking about arthritis, and it definitely made me stronger at being able to stand up for myself. And I think that's a huge silver lining in my life, because I can now, if I'm working, I can be like, I am flaring, I can't do this. I will work on it my way, where I feel safer and I feel more in control of the situation. If I'm at school, I can be like, I need to use my IEP, like things that I need. I have accommodations for this. And I had a really, really hard time standing up for myself. And like, if I'm flaring, I have it in my fingers. And, it's really hard for me to write sometimes.
She walked in here today and she started writing with like her fist gripping the pencil. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you're going to let me write now.
But I just don't, like, I can't do it another way. Like, that's the level of my fingers are at right now. That's how I have to write some days, okay,
Right.
Kate?
No,
Okay.
I empathize.
You let me write.
I'm like, I just can't do it another way. And before I would deal with it, and I'm like, I'm not doing it, I'm typing. And I think
Right.
that's something that is a really, really big silver lining in my life, being able to like say that this situation, as like, it can suck some days. Like, it doesn't always have to be like sunshine and rainbows. Like, having arthritis sucks. And I'm not like, it's nothing to sugarcoat. Like everybody has bad days. Like you run out of spoons, you run out of certain things. But like, I wouldn't change it for the world, because I've learned so many things that I hadn't in the past. I've been given more opportunities. So I've seen her like grow and change, and I understand it better. And I think it's really important. Well said. Thanks.
Yeah, that was really well said. We're going to
Thanks.
kind of move on to one of our last questions that's very hypothetical. In general, what's something you want parents to know about having one child with a chronic condition or one without, and having multiple children with a chronic condition? Or we can flip that and say, if you were a parent, what's something you'd want to do in that situation? What do you think parents need to know in this context of being a sibling with JA?
I think there's a few things. The first one that I'd go with is for the sibling that doesn't.
Equal attention.
Yeah. And you can't always do, like, I understand that maybe you can't always do equal attention in the sense of school, where you're like, the kid who has the arthritis needs more support to be able to succeed. But in terms of just being positive to your kid, like, sometimes when you have the arthritis, you get I don't want to say negative attention, because it's not negative, but it's because you're struggling.
It's more protective.
Yeah, and I'd just say spread the positive attention too, especially to both, but especially to the kid that doesn't have arthritis and that doesn't get as much, because they need to know that they're just as important.
You talked about like lying on merrily or vice versa.
Yeah.
I do that with my dog. I couldn't sleep because of pain sometimes. And I would come downstairs and I would bother my parents and be like, I can't. And then they got me a dog in 3rd grade, and suddenly I went to sleep like that. Like we were all fine.
They're just so loving. And it's like, they don't care if you're like, they don't care if you're hurting, they don't care if you're bald, they don't care if on medicine that makes you throw up. Like, they don't care. They're just loving animals. It's in their nature.
I mean, sometimes, like, with the pain and not being able to sleep, I mean, that can be hard, and a dog might not necessarily fix that. That can be nice to just have, like, a dog to cuddle with.
Having something that you can take care of kind of takes the pressure off of taking care of yourself sometimes. And when you have a chronic illness, like, you always have to take care of yourself. And so whether it be taking your dog out for a walk or watering your plants or doing whatever it may be, having something to do to take care of other than yourself just feels really nice. And I think with that, like, let's wrap it up and let's say, what are the top 3 things that you would say to somebody listening to this episode? What would be the top 3 things you want them to take away?
I think that I'd say one of my top ones would definitely be, you're just not alone, and find a community, find someone where you can get that support from people that really understand.
If parents are listening, just making sure attention split evenly, that like if one kid gets a special thing from like dealing with it, that you get the other one something special for them too, and like even it out. Make sure each kid feels appreciated for their own life and what they go through, because even if it's not an invisible illness, every kid goes through something.
I think I've learned a lot on this episode, definitely about how relationships can really help with a chronic illness. I feel like a lot of times we take it for granted, and don't take it for granted. You know, I have 3 best friends that I grew up with. We're all only children, and they've become my sisters. They know me, and the recurring jokes and memes and making fun of each other, but also just understanding is so important. Find your person. You know, that doesn't have to be a sibling. That doesn't have to be somebody with JA, like Bailey talked about. But we need a support system as people with JA. As cliche as that sounds and how overused it is, we do, you know?
It's needed. It's necessary.
And the reason it's so overstated is because it doesn't happen all that often. We need people that will be able to say, yeah, it's okay to take a rest, to take care of yourself, when the entire world is screaming at you to do the opposite.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We had a great conversation about siblings, building relationships, pets, and all the things. This episode perfectly summed up what it's like to have arthritis, as we just
chaos included. We're flying by the seat of our pants all the time. We may look professional, but none of us have it all figured out. No. This is definitely Arthritis Foundation podcast, but we don't know everything. We're flying by the seat of our pants just like you.
And it's okay to not be okay.
Heck yeah, it is.
Own it.
Own it. I love it. Thank you guys so much. And for everyone listening, tune into the next episode.
The JA Talks podcast is independently produced by the Arthritis Foundation and our volunteers.